So this is going to be the kind of companion to the short film, sort of a director's commentary, if you like, theory slash making of. And I'm going to go over some of the shots that I've used, why I've used them, the kind of general themes and ideas that I'm trying to convey, and obviously the theory behind a lot of the messaging that I'm trying to get across, because obviously it's as a direct result of the course. So disassociation is kind of the central theme of this whole film, and the thought process behind adding this scene of the woman butchering the pig was that I had thought to myself a lot of times, when you really strip everything back, and kind of have a reductionist view of yourself, we kind of are just meat and bones, really. I mean, as disturbing as that thought is, that's all we really concretely are. And that was the thought process, really. I kind of wanted to have that introspection, because I think a lot of people kind of forget that. It's easy to forget that you know, what you are, on a very base level. And that scene where she's really aggressively hacking into the bones, that was meant to be very jarring. I found it to be, at least. And this shot here was one that I ended up really falling in love with. I think just something about the kind of dim lighting really works for me. But it's obviously meant to represent the kind of hidden pollution that we all engage in. I mean, there's a lot of people who claim to be very conscious of their, effect on the environment and all these things, but every single person, it's unavoidable. I mean, you use up water and electricity and these things, and a big theme of this film as well was, and it sounds almost conspiratorial, but you don't really see the environmental impact that leaving the tap on or leaving the plug on has on the world, but it does have one. And I just thought that was kind of interesting, because, and the same thing goes for the coffee cup here. I actually don't drink coffee, I just made this for the film. I obviously drank this cup, but I don't usually drink it, is my point. But I kind of just wanted to comment on the, again, kind of pollution, because I have no idea where my coffee comes from. I'm sure there is probably more ethical ways to source it, but all of these things that people so readily consume, I mean, it's incredibly easy to forget the impact that we actually are having. And that's definitely seen again with the plug here, because power, it all takes from the Earth's resources. And I think one of the reasons why we live in such a consumerist society nowadays is because it's so easy to forget that you actually do have an impact. I mean, these tiny things, they all add up. And I don't know, it's just so easy to forget about that. And I really wanted to explore that and kind of ask those questions of the viewer, what impact are you actually having? Can you tell you're having one at all? Because it can often be so easy to forget. And for this whole segment, with kind of regards to actions and how much they matter, I definitely had Doric Cone on the mind, because this whole thing is very much an external expression of internal thoughts that I have had. And it's all about kind of asking the viewer to explore much more what I would consider to be forgotten about perspectives, or, less common perspectives, the impacts that you have that you don't know about, as I've spoken about a couple of minutes ago. But that was kind of the thought behind this segment of it. And this section, more than some of the others, I think the sections are quite clearly separate from each other in a lot of places, but this kind of represents a lot more of the fringe thoughts, if you like, the things on the outskirts of my mind, which links quite well into what Cohen speaks about, because the viewer is obviously going to ask those more far-flung questions of themselves. At least that's my intention in asking these kinds of things and putting them on the screen. And this scene here with the desk and the photographs, it might seem kind of jarring at first because it's in portrait and it's one of only two scenes that are filmed in portrait, but it was actually a very intentional choice because I really wanted to zoom out, partially because I didn't want the pictures to be, fully visible in the note, but also because it's sort of meant to convey that emotional distance that I have from those people now, and the physical pieces on the desk are all that are really left of those relationships. So, the shot distance represents the emotional distance that I now feel from these people, which is quite depressing, but and this image here of all the posters on my wall, this I found to be really quite powerful because, I've been looking at these posters every day for quite a long time, but it was only during the filming of this that I kind of realised how influential they actually are, because I started seeing, the collective as kind of this bubble that I am surrounded by. It's all media, and I think it's kind of subconsciously very influential on almost the way that I see other images in the general world. So, I don't know, it was something that I definitely thought needed including. And I think art in general, in any form, really does soak into you almost subconsciously a lot of the time, more than people would like to admit. So yeah, I kind of just wanted to ask that question of the viewer as well. How much does the media, and especially these shots, the art that you look at, how much does that influence who you are and how you see the world? And I purposefully didn't want to answer that question because I think it's much more interesting to leave that ambiguous. And I obviously have my opinions on it, but I think it's much more of an interesting proposition to ask that question of the viewer than to tell them how I feel about it, because they'll obviously have different perspectives on all of that. And that clip was just some Star Wars Bounty Hunter, a game that was very influential on me as well. So that was kind of just something that I thought I should include. And with this bit slowed down, you can kind of see how I edited it, but this was kind of a not so subtle way of bringing back that idea of, how ethical really are you? What is the cost of consumerism, really? All of these clothing items that I have no real knowledge of, where they came from or how the material was sourced. It's just kind of something interesting to think about. And these next two shots are something that I was really, really lucky to get on camera. Something that I've actually never seen in this country before, which is a dry thunderstorm. And I found it to be massively relevant for this film because, besides the fact that the shots themselves feel very lonely and empty and kind of brooding and dark. There was a massive connection I found between this weather and the kind of internal conflict that I had been feeling, kind of linking back to week 5 and whether or not you have an identity without your community. And I really thought to myself, or I guess I saw in the thunderstorm, the difference of myself between, unwillingness to reach out to people because I'm picky and I can't get on with people, but then also that feeling of kind of crippling loneliness that I get a lot of the time, kind of the inability to win either way, I guess. I just saw that in the weather and definitely thought that was a pertinent thing to include. And obviously separately from that, I mean, it's just really nice to look at the lightning kind of lingering in the sky, which is not something that you ever really see in this country. So I'm really glad that I got this on video. And these next 2 shots are where I kind of run into some of the issues of using film as a medium, because the focus was definitely on senses other than sight. So kind of the sense of touch of the water, the heat of it and the sound. I mean, you do get an idea, but it's not the same as if it were really right next to you. And obviously you can't feel the heat of the water. But to me, I had this realization that the information that you intake from the world, and I mean the raw sensory data, the touch, the hearing, the sight, that plays a huge part in who you are. And it's kind of a difficult idea to get across. But this shot here, with the very warm colour palette, obviously is meant to represent the heat of the radiator. And I kind of wanted to just ask the question of, in a raw sense, is our identity the sensory information that we intake, and our ability to understand that we are sensing these things? I don't know, just something interesting to think about. But then obviously I discussed the importance of thinking and asking these questions, because that is a massive part of, I think, what it is to be human. But then I wanted to kind of contrast that idea here with the footage of the elephant being played Moonlight Sonata. And it's quite interesting to watch in slow motion, actually, because you can catch a lot more details that you wouldn't see on normal speed. And I've probably watched this video about 50 times. The whole thing is on YouTube. The guy plays the whole of Moonlight Sonata. It's about 7 odd minutes long. But this is one of my favourite videos I've ever seen, because there's just no doubt about the fact that elephant is perceiving the music that he's being played, and he's having these thoughts. And I just really wonder to myself, if they could speak our language, what kind of fascinating stories would he have to say? I wanted to use more from this video, but obviously I didn't just want to have a massive segment from someone else's video tacked on the end, so I've kind of kept it to the highlights. But I really do recommend watching this video, because I think it gives a fascinating perspective on the idea of what identity is, and whether or not animals have identities of their own, separately from us. I mean, we are animals at the end of the day, but I just really think that it asks a very interesting question of the person watching the film, and you can see that in the elephant's reaction to the music. So yeah, that's kind of the general gist of it. I could go into quite a great deal of depth, but I realise you have to watch this whole analysis of it. So I've kept it quite brief. There's a lot more that I could talk about. I realise a lot of it is kind of abstract at times, but that was very much intentional because I think it's a lot more interesting to ask introspection of the viewer than to tell them your answer, because our biases and everything affect the way that we perceive these things, and I think that for me to give an answer of what I think identity is would kind of be disingenuous. I mean, besides the fact that I don't have a concrete idea, I think it's much more interesting to ask questions of how we can really be sure of anything that we are, because I don't think that we can for the most part. So yeah, that's kind of the rundown. I hope you enjoyed the film, and I hope you enjoyed this little commentary. Yeah, thank you.